Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel and to a new episode of Speaking Saturdays. And here's our brand new set of questions. So let's get started. Part 1. Do you prefer using cash or cards? Actually, neither. I use an app on my phone. It's called Google Pay. And nowadays, all kinds of banking apps have this. You can just scan a QR code and you pay with the QR code. So I don't really use cash at all these days. Cards, very, very rarely. I do carry my cards with me all the time because, of course, you never know. Sometimes, the app doesn't work. Sometimes there's an internet problem. But I would say 95% or more of all of my transactions are done through Google Pay. Do you think cash will one day disappear? I don't know. I mean, sometimes it feels like that. Because of course, I mean, most people in my country pay using their phones, using applications. So, I mean, the use of cash is already on its way down. But I think that's a bad thing because cash gives you freedom. When you pay for something with cash, your purchase isn't tracked, right? I mean, right now, every single thing that I buy is through an app. And so all of my details are right there for any company to use, misuse, and so on. So, I mean, I don't know. It depends on the will of the citizens. There are some countries where cash is still king, and there are some countries like mine where electronic payments are all the rage. So that depends. If people are okay with giving up cash, then that could happen. But if people put up a fight and say, no, we will use cash, we want to use cash, we won't just depend on these applications and whatnot, then it could, be prevented. How can you keep your money safe online? So I would say I've kept my money safe online. I change my passwords. Well, actually, I change them whenever I am prompted by the application or when I get an email, hey, it's time to change your password. So you have your mobile banking application on your cell phone. So that's one password that you have to change. Then you also have net banking. Some people don't activate net banking. I think that could also be a good idea. That depends, of course, on how many bank accounts you have. So you change that password as well. You keep all your, I think it's a good idea. For example, you can set limits for transactions on your phone app or through net banking. So for cash withdrawals and point of sale, transactions or online transactions, you can actually set limits. You can activate or deactivate international transactions, domestic transactions, because at least where I live, if you do an international transaction, you have no password to enter. It's just you enter your card details and that's all that's necessary. So of course it's really important that you take care of your card details, ensure that your card doesn't get lost. I in fact lost one of my debit cards when I was, I think, 19 years old. I forgot to take it back from the machine, but it was easy. I just had to call customer care and they deactivated and sent me a new one. Have you ever saved up for something special? Yeah, I mean, now, as an adult, it's not really that big of a deal. But when I was younger, of course, when you say special, obviously it has to be something that you feel that you worked hard for. So this was probably when I was, I don't know, 15, 14, something like that. I wanted to buy an album, which was only available at a particular store. And at that time, it cost, I think, roughly around $10. And I was receiving pocket money, as most kids do. So I would save all the money and I wouldn't spend anything at all. And I finally, I think after maybe, I don't know how many weeks that was because I did have to buy something else, but again, I wanted to buy the album. So I saved up and I saved for weeks until I finally had the money. And then, I went after school and I got the album. So that was really great. I mean, it seems like a very minor thing right now. Right now, if I wanted to buy an album, I would just buy it. Like, I wouldn't even think for a second. Because it's no big deal. You're an adult, you earn money. But when you're a teenager, it's different, right? It's a lot more hard work. Okay, let's go on to part 2. Describe a time when someone gave you something that you really wanted. You should say what it was, when you received it, who gave it to you, and explain why you wanted it so much. So this could, people's first instinct would be to think that this would be some kind of a birthday gift. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. It could also be an email that you got, a message, could be anything. It just has to be a thing. It doesn't have to be a gift, because if it was supposed to be a gift, then the instructions would say so. So, this is, well, it's a great story. In fact, this happened, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 8 years ago or something like that. So I had recently just finished my education and training, and I really wanted to kind of work independently. I wanted to, help train people for exams. And what happened was that, of course, I mean, going at it alone, learning marketing and all these things, I had no clue. I had no idea. So I wouldn't even know where to start. So I would just Google stuff and learn whatever I could. I'd post on these teaching websites. But for the longest time, I think for like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months, just nothing ever happened. And then I slowly started giving up hope. But every now and then I'd still log on and post, one of these free teaching ads that you would get. And it took me a long, long time, but I eventually found my first client. But by that time, I actually already found a job, which was fun, but it wasn't like, what I wanted to do again, because my goal was always to be working independently. The job was just a thing that it was fun to do. So I was like, yeah, I don't have anything else to do right now, so I might as well. But I got a message and I was like, because again, nobody ever replied before, right? Because I was just trying randomly. It was all just a shot in the dark. So this person replied, and I was like, oh wow, that's very cool. And I was really excited. So I, called them back. It was a message on a website, so we shared numbers, and I called them after work, and they were asking questions and stuff, and I was just answering their questions, and I wasn't sure because again, I knew nothing about sales, marketing, nothing at all. I was just trying things randomly, but eventually, I don't know how, but they, again, as a newbie, it's difficult, to trust someone who's new, right? But well, they trusted me, and that's the story of how I found my first client. That was probably, I think it was May or June. I remember because it was pretty warm. And I was so excited that I wanted to quit my job. And I did, in fact, quit my job just a few months later because I then somehow, that it was kind of like the key that unlocked, this entire door of opportunities. So I found the first client, I prepared him well, and surprisingly enough, he actually got a really good score. And so then he referred someone else. And of course, then that's how things began. Then I had a little bit more money to invest in learning about things and marketing and doing other things, setting up my website, stuff like that. So that's the story. I really, I was looking for this kind of a break for such a long time. Like I said, it took me many months to find my first client. So it was a very slow process, took a lot of time, but I will always, value. And it wasn't even much money. It was very little money, really. But the excitement that I had back then, it's just not comparable to anything at all. I will always remember that because I know how much time and how much effort it took to get that first client. Okay, then we go on to part 3. What kind of gifts do young people like to receive as rewards? Well, this depends. If you're talking about children, then of course they would just like to, if it's like, sweet treats, it could be toys that they want. With children, it's mostly that. With adolescents or teenagers, because again, young people could be anything. So maybe if you have a teenager, they want a new cell phone, or they want to buy a new video game, or they want to have their pocket money increased. It could be something like that, most likely. But yeah, I mean, any kind of material gift is welcome, isn't it? But that depends on the person's traits, characteristics, interests, hobbies. I mean, if you've got, somebody who's into music, maybe they want to get a musical instrument as a gift. So that depends entirely. You cannot generally say, oh, all young people like this kind of thing, right? You would say, oh, well, if you have a daughter, just buy her shoes or something. But maybe she doesn't care about shoes, right? Depends on the person's personality. How should children spend their allowance money? Well, I think it's a good idea to give them an allowance because, again, it's okay to make mistakes. Even if your child spends all of their money on something absolutely silly, like I did, I saved up money and I just randomly bought this video game. It was totally not worth it, but it taught me the value of money. And so often people are too obsessed with the monetary factor, like, oh no, you wasted money, but did you learn a lesson? Would you repeat that again? No, then that's good. That's money that was invested into learning something. So it's really up to them, because when you're young, it's okay. The allowance money isn't something that's going to make your parents bankrupt or something, so it's fine. Do whatever you want. I really think that it's okay, even if they don't really, because again, they're learning, right? It's a new thing. When you start an allowance, they learn that this thing costs this much, but I have this much money, and so if I buy this thing, I will not have, I will have to wait until the weekend or the month's end or whatever, and they learn how to budget. So making mistakes, I think, is very important, to be able to understand how to deal with money, to understand the value of money as well. Not just the value of money, the value of your own time and effort. So it's not my place to say what they should spend their money on, because again, it's just an allowance is nothing major. It's a tiny sum of money. So I would in fact say, let them make mistakes, don't interfere, let them do whatever they want. They'll learn, and it's okay to learn the hard way. Yeah, maybe they buy something absolutely silly and then they don't have any money for the rest of the week. That's good, because they'll learn, and that's a lesson they will never forget in their entire life. Why do people like shopping more now than in the past? I don't know if you can say that, because going to the shops and spending an entire evening browsing through things, it's more than just shopping. It's spending time with family, friends. You build memories like that. Whereas if you're online and you go to Amazon.com and you just browse through things for like 10-15 minutes, there's nothing, there's no experience there. I mean, of course it is, very comfortable, very convenient. You save time and all of that, and heck, you even save quite a bit of money. That's probably a reason why, because of course it's very, like, a lot of people actually have shopping addictions, because again, when you buy something new, you get, your brain feels cool, like, oh, I bought something new. So that's probably one reason why we see a lot more, of course, consumerism, a lot more shopping being done. But I would not necessarily equate more shopping being done to actually liking that activity. Because again, like I said, the experience of shopping, like 15 years ago, was that you would go, spend an entire day, or at least, a few hours. You go out and you go to all these different places. You get to feel the fabric, texture, or whatever, maybe you want to buy a phone or something. And it's always, there's so much human interaction. You spend time with people, you make, a little trip out of it. So that experience is hard to beat. Do you think shopping is good for a country's economy? Well, of course. I think people, anything that can get people to spend more and more money regularly is great for the economy. Is it good for the individual? Of course not. But, well, it's kind of a weird dichotomy that what's good for the individual isn't necessarily good for the economy. If everybody's just started saving money and really, really, became very frugal, that would be awful. That would be terrible for the economy. And that in return would be awful for people. So it's kind of funny how the cycle, works like that. But yes, I think that, of course, we have genuine complaints against consumerism. It's not good for the environment. That's a major, major problem. But just the way things are in modern society, we're kind of obsessed with increasing productivity, increasing GDP, increasing per capita income. Like, the greed is endless. And I wouldn't even say that we should stop, and not care about growth, because if you stop caring about growth, you stagnate and you die. And that's happening in quite a few countries. So it's just one of those questions that, is very tricky, because of course it's good, definitely great in the short term, but long term, like if you think over decades, over centuries, who knows? Okay, so that was our test for today. Don't forget to check in soon. We have tons and tons of videos, new videos coming up as well. And in case you like the video, don't forget to click on the like button. Really appreciate it. And if you have any comments, suggestions, feedback, whatever, just leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you. Until then, bye-bye.